Come, baby.
Enjoy this great game.
With each passing year, the history of baseball becomes richer and lengthier. Although baseball fans will likely always be knowledgeable about immortal superstars like Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, Jackie Robinson, and Willie Mays, there are some stars from the 1920s and 30s that many fans may have never even heard of, such as Hippo Vaughn, who won at least 20 games 5 times, including a dominant 1918 season in which he went 22-10 with a 1.74 ERA. He would have easily won the Cy Young Award, but it wouldn't exist for another 48 years. But in today's video, we'll be discussing a player who was considered the best baseball player alive at one point. This was so long ago that even before Babe Ruth came along, he was already largely forgotten. A 1915 article written in Baseball Magazine said, "No matter how great you were once upon a time, the years go by and men forget. Ross Barnes, 40 years ago, was as great as Ty Cobb or Honus Wagner ever dared to be." Charles Roscoe Barnes, known as Ross Barnes, was born on May 8, 1850 in Mount Morris, New York. He took an interest in a relatively new sport called baseball, and he made the roster for a team called the Rockford Forest Cities in 1868. During the 3 years he played for them, he earned a reputation as one of the best all-around ball players in the country. He was only 5'8", and he didn't crush the ball, but he was the game's first scientific hitter, studying where the defense was and aiming to hit it where they ain't. In 1871, Rockford joined the National Association of Professional Baseball Players, the first fully pro baseball league to exist. However, before the season began, Barnes signed with the Boston Red Stockings, another team in the National Association. He made his professional debut in 1871 and was masterful, finding ways to get on base however possible and then using his amazing speed to score runs. He led the league in runs scored during his first season and hit .401 with an OPS over 1,000. It has to be noted that the game was drastically different then, with the pitching mound just 50 feet away and gloves not even existing. Still, this was professional baseball, and Barnes was proving to be one of the best. He was also praised for his spectacular defense and powerful arm. In 1872, his second season, Barnes led all of baseball with a .430 batting average. He also led the league in hits, doubles, slugging percentage, and OPS. He was clearly the premier player in the league, and one of, if not the first superstars in baseball history. Another early player and manager of the game, Bob Ferguson, is quoted as having said that Barnes was the best batter and ball player who ever lived. Another former player turned famous sports writer, Tim Mernon, said that Barnes was the king of second basemen, as well as the finest batsman and run getter of all time. In his third season, 1873, he had his best year and would have easily won the MVP award had it existed at the time. Barnes hit .431 and averaged more than 2 hits per game. He led the league in nearly every offensive category, including hits, doubles, triples, and walks, and even stole a league-leading 43 bases. During this time, baseball had experienced a big boost in popularity, as it was hugely popular with soldiers during the Civil War. They brought the game and interest in it back to their hometowns after the war. Still, it was the 1870s, and even though professional baseball was a reality, there were no television sets or even radio broadcasts back then, so player popularity could only be so strong. In 1874, Barnes had a quote-unquote down year by hitting .340. Imagine a .340 batting average being a down year. The next year he bounced back some by hitting .364 while leading the league in hits and runs scored. During his first 5 years as a pro ball player, Barnes proved himself to be simply the best all-around player in the world. However, the league he played in, the National Association, would fold after the 1875 season, leading the way for the National League of Professional Baseball Players to form and become the dominant professional baseball league in 1876. This is the league that is now considered Major League Baseball. And in 1969, MLB decided that the National Association would be excluded from Major League status due to erratic scheduling and a history of gambling. It's quite rich that Major League Baseball won't consider the National Association a major league due to issues with gambling. Also, erratic scheduling makes no difference in the fact that these were the best players in the world. Major League Baseball understood this when they officially promoted several of the Negro Leagues to Major League status, a move that made perfect sense as many if not most of the players who played in those Negro leagues were more than good enough to play in the major leagues. The decision to still not consider the National Association a major league is extremely controversial because there is no doubt that from 1871 to 1875, the best baseball players in the country played in the National Association. If you were a baseball fan at that time, the National Association was your major leagues. Barnes proved this when he signed to play in the National League with the Chicago White Stockings in 1876. He had another monster year, hitting .429 with the league-leading 126 runs and 14 triples. He also led the league in doubles, walks, total bases, and every offensive percentage. After one season of Major League Baseball, the best player in the game was Ross Barnes. When combined with his National Association career, he had an absolutely dominant 6-year stretch. As a defender, he led all of second basemen in fielding percentage during his career and rarely made errors, despite the fact that errors were much more commonplace during his era than they are today. Also, despite the fact that Barnes was not a big home run hitter, he can say one thing that no home run hitter can ever say. On May 2nd, 1876 in Cincinnati, he hit the first home run in Major League history. In his next at-bat, he almost did it again, crushing one off the wall for a triple. Unfortunately, in 1877, Barnes began to suffer from a mysterious illness. His strength and speed were compromised, and he could not play like he used to. He attempted comebacks in 1879 and 1881, and although he was serviceable, he could not repeat his impressive seasons of the past. Barnes retired having only played in 9 professional seasons. This fact is important because the Hall of Fame requires that players have at least 10 years of Major League experience to be eligible for the Hall of Fame. Even if you count his time in the National Association, he only played 9 years. If you only count his National League career, he played for 4. He was not a manager, owner, or even technically an organizational pioneer, meaning that he cannot be inducted as a non-player. But does the Hall of Fame have to follow this rule to a T? The answer is no. In 1977, the board of directors passed a special resolution for Addie Joss, a fantastic pitcher who played only 9 years but died of tuberculosis before the start of his 10th MLB season. The resolution allowed the 10-year minimum requirement to be waived, and Joss was inducted into the Hall of Fame. A similar process must happen for Ross Barnes, who absolutely deserves to have a plaque in Cooperstown. And this may have already happened because I have seen reports that Ross Barnes will be eligible on the 2025 committee ballot. If so, committee, do the right thing. Vote for Ross Barnes. Barnes passed away 107 years ago in 1915 when he was already forgotten by most MLB fans. This remains true today, but a simple recognition of his accomplishments with a plaque in Cooperstown would go a long way to bringing more awareness to his contributions to the game. Barnes was not only the first best player in Major League Baseball, but also hit the game's first homer and was possibly the game's first true superstar. Thank you so much for checking out today's video on an early star of the game. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit that subscribe button and look forward to my next documentary in which we'll go over 10 more Hall of Fame snubs, which will include a brand new one who was kept out of the Hall of Fame on the latest ballot. And I'll also have some updates as Scott Rowland and Fred McGriff have finally been elected. And hopefully someday that will also happen for Ross Barnes. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time.